Joining us now live from our Cape Town studio to discuss his new position as parliamentary leader for the Democratic Alliance is Mmusi Maimane. Mmusi, good morning and thank you so much for making the time to join us. Now, the DA has made significant strides into Gauteng, and on the back of that, we see you moving away from that post and into Parliament. Why the decision not to stay in Gauteng?
Good morning and thank you so much for having me. Gauteng is an important place in South Africa. We've grown significantly. I think we had a fantastic election result there. The key issues that we campaigned on in Gauteng were about jobs, about the economy. It's about making sure that we see growth in South Africa's economy. And you know, macroeconomics, when you are in opposition, is actually set in national parliament. And so I hold Gauteng with absolute passion. I believe that we can play a significant role in being able to look at the economic outlook of South Africa, which is best expressed in Gauteng as the economic hub of certainly South Africa and the continent. And so I felt it important that I come and contest for that and serve South Africans and the people of Gauteng in that regard. The final thing is, as an MP, I maintain a constituency in Gauteng and in fact retain my own home there, so we'll commute between here and Gauteng.
Mmusi, it's been said that in politics, high office makes the clock tick. That's what drives people. Now, in Gauteng, the ANC vote dropped from 63 or so to 53%. People are talking about the next election and possibly even the city council in 2016 of the DA taking power or at least being a major partner in a coalition. That's power in a very important province. You're not going to take power at the next election and Parliament in Cape Town. Wouldn't high office be more important than debating?
Not at all. Not at all. Our processes allow us to, it doesn't necessarily mean that by virtue of being in Cape Town I'm excluded from being able to contest for any other thing, whether it be in 2016 or whether in 2019. I do believe that we've put together a very good team in Johannesburg. I think those metros will come into contention in the next election, and I'll certainly be at the forefront of that campaign to make sure whoever the mayoral candidates are and the various players on board do their best and do well. I also have to consider the fact that I want to serve the DA in its broader sense, and having moved into now the legislative framework, which is either being an MP or an MPL in a legislature, I feel I can serve at least certainly in the next elections in 2019 and would be able to contest if needs be.
Mmusi, a few developments on the DA front in terms of leadership. We had Herman Mashaba from the Free Market Foundation indicating that he's going to be joining the party. There's been a lot of reaction to that, and one of the interesting views is that this threatens your position as the black face of the Democratic Alliance. How do you respond to that?
No, I'm not in a contest to become the black face of the DA. I'm in a contest to make sure the DA diversifies and that we have as many South Africans from all walks as possible. And so in this particular instance, we're going to have many South Africans. The majority of the people who vote for the DA are in fact black. The majority of our membership is black, and so I think it's a very, very strong possibility that we're building a party that's diversifying. And if you look at all the other opposition parties, only to the exclusion of the EFF, we have the highest number of black people who vote for the DA. So I think it's a really, we're working hard to make sure the organization is diverse in every sector of it.
Mmusi, staying with Herman Mashaba, I think the consensus is that the DA and Mashaba got this right, as opposed to Mampela Rampile, who got it wrong with Gang. He came in after the election. He didn't try and get coattails into power on celebrity, but he says he's an ordinary card-carrying member. We don't really believe that. We think he's marked for something bigger than being a card-carrying member. Where do you see him being? I'm not saying necessarily as a leader, but what kind of role do you think he's going to play?
I mean, we don't just preach open opportunity, we live it. Mr. Mashaba is a very good friend of mine. I respect him. I think he's an exceptional individual. He has the right and the choice to decide what he wants to do. So it's both what his intention and what his views are, and secondly, it's about where we will be. And I think I applaud him for having taken the stance to simply join a branch. And he will be very key in us being able to communicate to new markets. It's really entirely up to him as to what he does. Of course, these things have to go through our provincial structures, our branch structures. We go to Congress next year, and so it's up to, really, if he believed he wanted to stand for any position, I think he'd have to contest an internal election and then face up to it. I certainly do wish him well. I think going into 2016 he'll play a very crucial role in us being able to talk about the economy, talk about small businesses and drive that message, and then he'll certainly in 2019 also crucially so going into an election.
Mmusi, on the back of Lindiwe Mazibuko departing from the party and making an intention known that she's going to Harvard, there's been a lot of noise about the real reasons why she's left. The dust has settled. I think it's only fair now to pose the question. Why did Lindiwe leave?
Lindiwe, as a South African, was offered a brilliant opportunity at Harvard University. It's an esteemed institution. She is young in that we're both of similar age, but she's not married. She has an opportunity to go and further her career. I think in its most simplest form, actually, that it's a very crucial reason that she's been able to go and take that opportunity, that she'll be able to come back to the DA and serve. She'll serve in a better capacity. So I think at its most rudimentary level, that is that. All the other things that have been infused on this matter, and some of them have been inflated and distorted to communicate a particular point. There's no question about the fact that she was going to face an election as parliamentary leader if she wanted to do so, and she's made a choice to go to Harvard. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Mmusi, the parliamentary environment is different to the provincial environment, and it can be a tough environment. You're being parachuted in. There are a lot of people who've been there for some time already. So the first question I'm asking here, and I suppose it's the same question, but the first part of it is, you've got to adjust to a new environment and lead it, so that's quite a big adjustment for you. Secondly, Parliament seems to have been downgraded in effect because the debate goes on often elsewhere. What are you going to do to re-establish the primacy of Parliament? Because it's not easy, because you're not the national leader.
Well, you know, what's crucial in this instance is that the fifth Parliament will have to debate issues about jobs and job creation. I come from a macroeconomic space, and so I want to make sure that we're going to make that the central part of discussion. And so to do that, we've got to, I think the ANC will come in the next 5 years with a national democratic revolution type of documentation and drive under President Zuma. We've got to make sure that we contest for economic growth, market liberalization, and making sure that South Africans can be custodians of their own wealth. And so there's a key distinctions, and we've got to be ideologically contesting that. So I'm certainly looking forward to making sure that is the central platform. The other question about experience and many other things, I think we've got a very good team. In fact, later on this morning I'll be announcing our shadow cabinet, and I think even in looking at that, it's a different DA going forward. It's a DA where, in fact, we have some of the most competent South Africans come into our benches. We can be able to blend experience and some very dynamic young MPs coming on board. And I think we should never ever, when you consider in this instance, public service should never be a gold watch for people who have been in the party forever. It should be a space where the best can get to the top, as is in this particular instance. The final thing is that even in my own election, it became a lot of hard work to make sure we get to where we were. Any South African could have contested for the position. I felt I had the confidence of the caucus, and certainly will want to continue that in the next number of years as we blend what has been a fairly experienced team and all the new young dynamic MPs. And I think Parliament is going to be an interesting place. There are new players, there's the Economic Freedom Front, there's a whole lot of new parties in Spain, new leaders. And I think this fifth Parliament will have a sense of dynamism about it anyways, just by virtue of the fact that there's new players. But I think we've got a lot to contest for.
Very quickly, Mmusi, before we let you go, you have been likened very positively to Barack Obama. Do you have presidential ambitions?
For now, I'm wanting to be the best leader of opposition I can be, and then as to what happens after that, we'll work it out as we go.
Mmusi, most politicians have mentors or role models or heroes. Who are yours? And one also thinks of your predecessors as leader of the party. Have you asked their advice? Have you asked Tony Leon's advice, for example? I'm not saying he necessarily is a hero of yours, but he's been there. Who have you spoken to? Whose advice are you taking?
Certainly. I mean, Tony Leon is a key voice. I certainly spent some time with Tony to try and understand what lessons he's learned. I also try and keep people outside of this space. So I've got a lot of economists who unfortunately, because of their political affiliations in other parties and various places, don't want to be revealed. But I certainly do spend time with people outside the party to contest for ideas that are different to mine. And I think, of course, I mean, even in the role that Helen Zille plays, I think many people, she's been the federal leader at this point. I don't think she'll remain in that role forever, and so I think it becomes important in any organization to retain that knowledge and try and bring it into the institution. So she's, as a federal leader, as a key voice that you consider in making the process. But I certainly try and keep a balance between people inside the party and those who are outside.